Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holiday.
Welcome to Monumental. I'm your host, Evan Holiday, and today's guest is Ryan McKenna. Ryan is a full-time real estate investor and founder of McKenna Capital, a private equity firm that provides opportunities for investors to become passive equity partners in institutional quality, recession-resilient real estate, focusing on value-add multifamily, self-storage, and manufactured home parks. McKenna Capital has helped investors allocate capital across 5,000 units. That's crazy. With a combined asset value of over $500 million. Ryan has worked with some of the most experienced and well-respected operating partners across the United States and oversees all capital raising efforts, acquisitions, and investor relations for his firm. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Evan. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, very glad we're here on Monumental. So let's just jump right in to your backstory and how you got to where you are in multifamily today.
Great. Yeah, happy to share that. Let's see. I guess I have to take you back to when I was in college in the early 2000s, played baseball at Arizona State. And that was kind of the first time I was introduced to multifamily investing and I guess syndication, that whole business model. A teammate of mine, his father was an apartment syndicator, and he would come into town and Phoenix, looking at all these big 200-300 unit apartment complexes. And I was always intrigued by, how they were able to purchase these large apartment complexes. And that's when he kind of shared with me what, the syndication model was, pooling together a bunch of investors. And so I kind of developed this relationship with him where, outside of baseball, we would just talk about real estate. And I just was kind of fascinated with what he was doing and told myself, someday I would love to do that and become a syndicator and put those types of deals together. And, I went through something in that time period of my life that really kind of changed and was probably, the impetus for where I am today. And I guess to kind of share, I'll make a long story short, but my dream was always to play, baseball, not only, at Arizona State, but to go and, give it a shot the next level, which would be, the major leagues. And I worked really hard to get there, made a lot of sacrifices, and, was on a platform that a lot of my teammates went on to go play at that next level. And I suffered a kind of unforeseen illness end of my sophomore year, something that was completely out of my control, and spent 6 months in and out of the hospital and was diagnosed with ITP. It's a blood platelet disorder, very similar to leukemia and lupus. And
Wow.
It basically just ruined my career, my baseball career, because I went from, being in the best shape of my life to playing at the highest level to, being bedridden for 7 days in a row, trying to kind of go through all these procedures and figure out what's going on. And as you can imagine, it was tough to take, especially when you felt like you were dealt a bad hand and you had nothing to do with it. You don't really even know what caused it. And that was kind of the world I was living in back in the early 2000s. And, the doctors basically told me, you'll never play baseball again. That career's over. You need to start thinking about something else. And it was at that moment that, I realized I had to kind of fall back on my education and think about my future long-term. Like, what do I want to do? Because I had, and back then my goal was set on to go play at the next level. It was that or nothing else,
Yeah.
And then when reality set in, it was like, all right, I have to seriously think about what I want to do when I graduate. And going back to those conversations with the teammate of mine, his father, and learning about real estate investing, the apartment syndication model. As I was literally lying in a hospital bed, I started reading a lot of books. And one of the biggest books that had I guess the largest influence in my life is Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The book came out around that time in the early 2000s. And it was like my blueprint for financial freedom and what I wanted to do. And that kind of set things in motion to kind of get me to where I am today. I mean, it didn't happen overnight, but it was, 15 years in the making of just wanting to do this, envisioning it, And, after I, graduated from Arizona State, I got into the business world, and I basically told myself, look, I can't do this in baseball anymore, but I'm going to do the best I can in the business world. And more specifically, from a real estate investing perspective, because that was kind of my ticket to give me the financial freedom that I wanted at some point. If I had a baseball career and was able to do well, I also saw the same opportunities from a real estate investing perspective. And that's really what attracted me to that. And so, I got in with my first investment in 2006 and started like most in single family rentals, and kind of learned, what I liked about that type of business and what I didn't. And, from there, after a few of them, I realized, in order to scale, I had to get into the multifamily syndication. And so started out as a passive investor, kind of learning my way throughout all this. And then, today, basically built my business, McKenna Capital, which, we help other investors invest passively in multifamily syndications and a few others, as you mentioned. And so it's just been pretty exciting to see everything take off. And there's a lot that happened in between that we can jump into, but I kind of wanted to set the stage with, I guess some adversity, some monumental change in my life that happened that really kind of shaped my destiny to where I am today. And as I look back, I wouldn't have wanted it to be any different, because I think I found my path through, kind of being dealt a bad hand and overcoming adversity. And I couldn't be any happier right now than where I am. And I finally feel like what I'm doing today, I was born to do. And that I've never said before about anything that I've really done in my life.
Yeah.
And it just feels so natural. And it took a while to get there, but I absolutely love what I'm doing right now.
That's amazing, man. I that's like a whirlwind of a story, and I love how you ended it. Like you finally found your passion, and you're living your purpose every day, in making that monumental change in the world by what you're doing. That's pretty amazing. So let's jump back to when you were in college, and you had your buddy on the baseball team whose dad was investing in multifamily. At that point, you said you're like, someday I want to be doing something like that, or I could see myself doing something like that. Were you asking him questions or learning from him as he was coming to Arizona and looking at deals?
Yes, I was. And, curiosity set in with what he was doing. And, and it was also the lifestyle. He'd tell me, like, I chose to be a real estate investor and run my own syndication business because I enjoyed being able to have, flexibility in my schedule and being able to, have breakfast with the kids and not feel like I need to be rushing to get to, this appointment or that appointment. And so there were other things that were attractive to that. But I think at the end of the day, I felt like, wow, you could afford to have a lifestyle that gave you, more time with your family, maybe a little bit less stress, and, could make you very wealthy, and also be able to do it on your own terms with people that you really enjoy, working with. And it just was something. I think I come from an entrepreneurial family, so I knew that, I've always wanted to do something kind of on my own, and this was just a great fit. And all along the way, he would send me books on, real estate syndication, and so I would just, again, be reading those as I was, training at ASU. And then as I, got sick and was in the hospital, I just kept learning and reading, and I just was really drawn to it. And he actually was my first 5 investments as a passive investor in multifamily syndication I did with his firm. So I, kind of stayed in touch over the years. And then when I got back into it, it was a great way for me to really fully immerse myself, not only just by asking questions and having conversations, but by being an actual investor. And that's when I really learned a lot. And that's when, once it kind of was set in motion and I found my path, I have not stopped. I haven't looked back, and it's completely changed my life. That first investment into a multifamily syndication for me.
That's amazing. And I love how, it sounds like you were curious from day one. You saw something, you're like, okay, well, this could have, this could check all the boxes for exactly the type of lifestyle and the type of life I'm looking for and the type of impact I'm looking for. And, you have a relationship with somebody that's already doing it. I think that's important for people to remember, is like, if you have somebody who you see in your life that is where you want to be, then you should target that person and say, hey, how can I help you, or how can I add value to you? Or if you already have that relationship, be curious, ask questions, learn, read books. Like if real estate and multifamily and syndication is where your passion is, then go after it. Dive in the deep end and start learning like Ryan did.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice, because most people, I think, you're trying to kind of figure out life, and it's hard to kind of know what the right path is. And I just I think at an early age had a vision of what I wanted my life to look like. And I knew that this was the path for me. But I didn't know, how quickly it would happen, or the time frame of it, but I just tried to stay close to it. And then one day the light bulb went off, and I was like, this is it, and this is my path. And so I try to kind of help other people that might have similar interests, because I'm learning from others. I just didn't happen to wake up one day with all the answers. I mean, I've learned from so many people, and so many people have been helpful to me. So that's what I really enjoy most about kind of, this place that we're all in, helping others invest in multifamily deals. It's just, it's just great to share knowledge that I've learned from others, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for other people that took time out of their life to help me along the way.
Right. It's like having one hand up to your mentors that are mentoring you, and
Yeah.
one hand down to be helping others to pull them up to where you are now.
Exactly.
So what you said about, I also love what you said about how, like, the syndication and multifamily investing, you could essentially achieve the same financial freedom and financial success and lifestyle that you had also been looking for with a potential baseball career. And I love that, like, analogy between the two, because it is true. I mean, you can make MLB type money.
You can make pro athlete money is what I say. And it's very possible. And it's fun along the way. I mean, it's the same type of journey, but yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I guess let's segue into, let's go into how you started fundraising for, you had mentioned that you had started fundraising for multifamily syndications while you were still full-time. And then how you did that with also going through and getting your MBA as well.
Yeah. I had a lot on my plate, but I think anyone that's very motivated will figure out a way to make it all work. And that's essentially kind of what I was able to do, because I had a lot that I was juggling, but I was kind of running on pure adrenaline, because I just was very passionate and happy with what I was doing, that the hours didn't seem to matter to me. It was more just kind of, the vision and seeing, what you're building grow. And that part was really exciting. So after I made those 5 investments into multifamily syndication, I started to make several more, and I was doing it with different syndicators, as I wanted to kind of, just explore different geographies, but then also, I wanted to get more diversification with other sponsors too, just so I get a great lay of the land. And after I did about 12 investments, I then learned about, the ability to raise capital for others that were putting together projects and help bring in capital to their deals. And that's really when my business took off, because not only could I continue to invest in great deals, but I could bring others into these opportunities. And as I was investing myself, early on, I was sharing what I was doing with others, and they were interested and wanted to invest as well. But I just didn't have the vehicle set up, or, the relationships, the connections to kind of get them into some of these deals. But I also took note that, there was interest. And so along the way, I reached back out. And then when I realized that, hey, there's a great opportunity here, there's so many people that were interested in this, but they just didn't really know how to kind of get into a deal. And they had a lot of questions, and I felt like I could help them educate them about, the process and the type of investment, because I was not only doing it myself, but I had close ties with a lot of the, general partners that were in these, syndicated deals. And so I kind of mapped out, before I started McKenna Capital, I put together a list of, it was 250 potential investors or people in my network that I felt like they would at least be interested in a conversation. And I reached out to all of them, calls, emails, you name it, coffees. And I went through that whole list, and the response rate was significantly high. And there was literally only a handful of people that responded in a way of like, hey, I'm not interested. I don't even want to talk about it. But everyone else was curious. They wanted to know and they wanted to hear it. And I think at the end of the day, like, they probably took the same approach that I have, is like, if someone had a good idea or good opportunity, I just hope they would at least think of enough of me to at least share it with me. Right. And that's all I was trying to do with them. I didn't know if it was a fit for them, but I felt like I cared about them, that they would at least, want to hear about it. Because the biggest response I get from most investors today is like, why didn't I know about this 15 years ago? Like, what I could have grown my portfolio
Where were you
worth to, what my life could be like today,
Yeah.
And that part is like, it's a pretty profound statement, because I found myself feeling very lucky. I knew about this, and I was just planning, a way to kind of get there. I knew about it at an early age, but I just didn't have the capital to do it. And so, I want more people to know about this, which is why I kind of went on this mission to spread the word with what we were doing. And then I started developing relationships with other operating partners out there that had an interest in me being a capital partner and bringing in other investors. And so literally, I recall my first deal. I didn't know how much I was going to be able to raise, but I felt like I had kind of planted enough seeds that there was enough interest out there from people in my network. And the first deal raised $500,000, and the second deal, we're at $500,000, and then from there it kind of went up. And the most recent deal I did, I just raised $3 million for, and
Wow.
we've done over 20 deals in an 18-month period. So
Wow.
it was a lot. I was doing this on the side. I was, getting my MBA at Notre Dame and launching this business all at the same time. And I had a full-time job with clients and responsibilities and a family and 2 kids. So it was a lot. It was kind of crazy, but about 3 months ago, I was happy to be able to leave the corporate world and pursue this full time, because there was enough sacrifice, with my family and just everyone, that I was juggling too much. I had to kind of give up something, and I gave up a full-time job to pursue this opportunity. And I couldn't be happier with where things are today, with, the impact I've seen other investors have just on their life. And I can tell you, 95% of my investors have done multiple deals. So it's not like they're just trying one out to see, hey, is this something I should do? Or, they're doing it, and then they're realizing, wow, here, I see that same path. And so they're investing in multiple deals, and that's pretty exciting. So, that's kind of where we sit today with everything, and a lot of opportunities ahead of us too.
That's awesome, man. And I think the biggest takeaway for our listeners is that, you were able to be able to raise capital for deals, and be able to do this all while you're still working full time, and even finding capital for other operators' deals, and thus getting you into the part of the ownership structure by being the capital raising partner. And I think that's something important for people to realize, is there's many different ways to add value in multifamily syndication. And with people like with your background, where you have a network of 250 plus people that you could put on a list and start dialing for dollars, more or less, and creating relationships there, and being like, hey, I want to include you on this great opportunity. And, there are people out there saying, well, why didn't I know about this before? And so you're adding tremendous value for these people, and also being able to get into part of the ownership structure as the capital raising partner.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm one of those people out there that, why didn't I know about that role before? Because
Yeah.
I probably would have done this a lot earlier had I known that. I just thought, you had to be either a passive investor or an active investor. I didn't know there was kind of this hybrid role in between, where I could do both, but then still be closely tied to the GP and work on that, that part of that structure. But then I'm also working with all the investors. Since I can do this full time, I just have the ability to have more conversations, to build my network of relationships. So I think there's a myriad of opportunities just to add value to everyone kind of along the food chain. And I look at this, again, this is a team sport for me now. We all kind of are working together, and we all have a small piece of a bigger deal. And I love that structure about what we do.
Yeah, and you said that you raised over $10 million on the side, working full time and getting your MBA, and it really just became so much work that you had to let go of the corporate life and go full time because you were missing out on opportunities.
Yeah, that's what essentially it came to, that where I couldn't keep up, and I knew that it was just time. And luckily, though, I had started as a passive investor and built a solid foundation of real estate investments. So I had, significant cash flow coming from the deals. So I was in a position where financially it didn't really, it wasn't going to change my lifestyle, but what I got was all my time, and to be able to dedicate it to the business, to investors. I mean, that was life-changing for me. And that was something that I think there's a message out there for that working professional that maybe wants, down the road to have more time with their family, more flexibility, or maybe they want to start a business, whatever it might be. I think investing in these types of deals can give you that platform that most investors want to invest in real estate for the cash flow. And obviously there's great, equity that can be gained, and the tax benefits are phenomenal. But I think you could start it, as a busy working professional, you could have all the same benefits as if you were actively doing this full time by investing passively. But then what it does is you kind of lay the groundwork for one day. I mean, it happened, almost within 3 years of me doing all these investments, that I was, financially independent just by making my own investments. And that's a different strategy, I think, than trying to go and buy, 30 different single family homes and managing all those, because that alone is a full-time job. But this is literally just, wiring funds into a deal, and you're kept in the loop, and it's that simple. And so it's definitely a strategy and a path. And, it's worked for me, and I'm sure, it's worked for others, but I didn't necessarily know about this, early on. I mean, I still was looking at, doing this as the syndicator. But I am, essentially a syndicator in a way, or co-syndicating the deals with the operating partners. So, again, I like the role that, I get to kind of work with the investors and the GP.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's a role that, like you said, if people would know more about this position, or knew that this role was available, to be able to be on the syndication side of things and be able to raise money and get involved with deals, I think a lot more people would probably start doing that, or take advantage of that on their way toward financial freedom. What would you tell somebody that is interested in pursuing that, as far as raising capital for multifamily syndication deals?
Yeah, I would first tell them, to reach out to someone who's already doing it today. One thing I would say is, I also just didn't jump into this as, oh, hey, I'm going to go raise capital one day. I mean, I invested in 12 deals passively before, to have that track record, that, the ability to speak to what it's like to work with multiple operating partners, and just, I had a good lay of the land. So I think, yes, it can be done overnight, but if I had to give some sort of recommendation, I would say, you're probably going to be a better position, more credible, if you've maybe gone down the path of investing in yourself or in some of these deals first. So you kind of know, what to expect. And then from there, you can launch right into, building out your network and maybe raising capital for other deals. So there's kind of two paths there. I guess the one I would say is, I think, again, if you can build up more experience by kind of doing this yourself and then launching from there, I think you're going to have more success long-term, just because you have, deals that you can speak to, that you've personally invested in, that you've kind of seen, grow along the cycle. And, so yeah, just, there's so many people out there that I think would love to just hear more. And I've got a ton of my own investors too that ask me, they want to have a bigger role, get into this, and do more of it. So it's exciting. I think it's great times just in the industry that we're creating more awareness around this. But yeah, I mean, just being on, listening to podcasts, just, like the one you put out. I mean, just you've got a lot of great guests on there. There's a lot of people that could help that are in this business. So I would encourage just, listening to more podcasts, reading books, but then also finding someone that you maybe, like I did. I kind of I found a mentor out there who I was really, interested in what they were doing. And I just wanted to kind of understand more. I would say, reach out to people, because I think you'll see that there's a lot of people that are out there that are willing to help and that want to help. And I think that's the best way, and take some sort of action and really try to just make that happen.
Yeah, guys, take Ryan up on his advice. Make sure you're educated. Read. There's plenty of books out there that are at tremendous value. Podcasts. There's a lot of great podcasts out there. And then also, take that extra step and find a mentor. Find somebody that's doing what you want to be doing. Even Ryan. I mean, Ryan's raised at half or done deals up to $500 million. I mean, that's pretty incredible. And he's invested deals passively and been able to raise significant amounts of capital to help make these deals happen. So these are the type of people that you need to be finding and learning from and reaching out to and adding value to them, and then finding a way where you can learn from them.
Yep.
So what is the next step now that you're going full time with McKenna Capital?
So, I mean, we're continuing to keep, building off of what we have. And, I think we're in a really great niche where, we're focused on, the passive income streams and in certain sectors, multifamily. We've done, self-storage and manufactured home parks. So I think it's continuing to keep working with our current operating partners, because they've been doing a great job of, providing great deal flow for our investors. But it's also, it'd be prudent of us to go out and find some other operating partners as we continue to grow, which I've done, and that's worked out well. And so, we're continuing to keep, providing, diversified opportunities and, helping to kind of grow the investor base. I mean, we started off with, 250 or investors or so that I was reaching out to. I mean, our distribution list today is over 1,500 investors, and, it keeps growing. And with word of mouth and just, happy investors, I mean, it's been fun to kind of see it all grow. But now that I have, all my time and energy in one sole focus, I mean, I just want to make this the best experience for everyone involved. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, I don't look at success by volume, even though that, we continue to keep growing and there's a lot of great opportunities out there. It doesn't take much. You get in a couple of really good opportunities and you just kind of build this slowly. I mean, it can dramatically impact your life. But as far as, I mean, that's a great question. I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm at the crossroads of like, where do I go? I mean, how I have a lot of opportunity to expand this, and I just want to be very purposeful about the growth, because I don't want to just jump into something and grow too quickly to where, we grow out of what made us, really desirable and what made the investors really happy. So I'm very careful to not try to be all things to all people, even though there's a lot of opportunities that are kind of thrown out there. I want to be very selective and disciplined, and we have a really good thing going, and I want to keep that. And I also want to remember, why I got into this, why I started my own business, for the freedom and flexibility. And so I just got to, make sure that is still ingrained in the business model, because I think that's why we all get into real estate investing. And I want it to be, kind of that, that feel, especially with my family. And so, so I think at this point, I mean, there's a bright future ahead, and we're going to continue to keep growing. And I think we're going to be just smart about the pace that we're growing, because I just want to keep, the structure intact and keep delivering on a good experience for everyone.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think that's great too. And you're exactly right, where you're going full time, you're getting all of your time back, and you're getting all of your mind back. Like you're not focused on work, you're focused on what you love and your passion and your family, which I think is amazing. So let's go back real quick to raising capital. As far as if there's somebody out there, they have their list, What do you think led to your success, or what advice could you give to others to have that conversation with potential investors for the very first time?
Yeah, no, it's a great segue into kind of just how it worked for me, but also how I think it could work for others. So I mean, just in business in general and relationships, I mean, it all comes down to, when you first connect with someone, you just never know where that relationship's going to take you. And I think, for someone that's been in sales before and been in the business world, it's like, I always made it a point to, make those meaningful connections, because you just never know when you might have some opportunities someday, and you want to be able to reach back out. So I think it's always good to stay in contact. And, of those investors I initially reached out to, I mean, I started along the way, sharing with what I was doing. And, I could sense some of the interest early on. It wasn't just like one day, like, oh, I'm going to go blast this email, I got an opportunity. It was planting the seed many years in advance, not only through relationships, but then as I kind of got, more focused in on the real estate, then I started kind of talking a little bit about that. And then when I kind of knew the opportunity was there, my investors already knew what I was doing, for the most part. And so it wasn't this big surprise, like, oh, I didn't realize,
Right.
I thought you're working at this job. It was like they knew that I had done several investments, and they were asking how they could get into it. So I think a lot of that was, it took time. It might look like it happened overnight, but it didn't. And so I think that is something people should know, because, a lot of my relationships, people trusted me. And I think that goes a long way, that, they wouldn't probably just be taking, this type of meeting with a stranger. And so I feel like I had, pretty high rate of interest, because it was these relationships I developed, and, people knew that I cared about them, and that I had a genuine interest in helping them. So I think that helped when I had my first opportunity, and there was a willingness to at least listen. And at the end of the day, this wasn't something where I was coming out to them as like a sales pitch, like, oh, hey, you got to do this. It was, here's an opportunity that I want to share with you. And there's no pressure to invest. And
Yeah.
it was kind of along the lines that I mentioned earlier, like, I'm sharing this with you because I hope, if you had this type of opportunity and you knew it was a good opportunity and you cared about me, that you would also think of me when you're out sharing this with others. And so that's the approach I take. And I think people appreciate that we're just kind of collaborating, educating, sharing. And at the end of the day, there's no pressure. It's completely up to them. And you're just there to kind of guide them and help answer questions. And I think that type of experience will make them, want to do it, or maybe they don't. And that's totally fine too. And I think you got to take that approach, or else you're going to limit, your potential here, because you'll turn people off if you kind of come at them as like, with a hard sale or anything
Yeah.
like that. So it's got to be on their terms, their, what they're comfortable with. And if you can provide, a way where you're just kind of educating and being helpful, I think that's the way you get started. And then from there, you do that enough times, then things just start growing. And now, I fast forward, I'm now having my investors that are, sharing this with their network and their friend. And that's where it gets fun. And that's where you could have monumental growth.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, it's that monumental growth, and that like momentum just builds
Yeah.
up, but it starts with that like pre-framing and making sure, first off, you have the relationship. You have that rapport, that really, like, you care about them as a person first.
Yeah.
And you genuinely care, which what you said, I definitely resonate with that. And then also, making sure you're not making this a high pressure situation. This is not a sales pitch. This is an opportunity, a unique opportunity where you're sharing it with somebody that you care about. And you're like, hey, I'd love for you to share this with me if you ever have an opportunity like this. And I think that puts like this no pressure mentality of like, hey, we have other people that would be willing to invest in this. You don't need to invest in this. There's no pressure to invest. If you don't feel comfortable right now, that's okay. And, then that makes it just a zero pressure situation where they just feel like you are looking out for their best interests.
Yeah. And that's how you want to, I guess, deliver, that message to them. And that's the feeling you want them to have, because you don't want, because a lot of these deals, you're talking about a lot of money that people are investing that they've worked very hard for. And, they've got to be completely comfortable with that. And, I don't ever want to be in a position where someone felt like they were forced to do anything, because that's not what we want. I mean, because then that only causes problems down the road when someone does a deal that they shouldn't be doing. And so we want to be very upfront and again, let them know everything about the opportunity. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I look at this as I was learning and educating myself for years before I jumped in. So, it can happen quickly, but it also, I mean, there's a lot of people that just are learning right now too. And that's totally fine. And I totally encourage that. So, everyone's just, different time of their life, and some they're ready right now. They have the funds, some don't, but they, are working towards that. And I just think, as long as you treat everyone the same and you're just helpful and, you try to, be responsive and educate them, you just let the rest just take care of itself. And that's kind of what I've seen. And, that's really kind of just what I'm focusing on, and just providing value and educating and making sure that we're aligning with good partnerships, and then have a model set up where I can leverage a lot of, what we're doing, because there is a ton of work. So anytime I can take stuff off my plate or streamline it as from a business, efficiency standpoint, that's what I'm doing. I've created I use MailChimp and have kind of a mass distribution list that is kind of set up to where when we have multiple opportunities or just being able to track everything, I can do it in an efficient way. Now we've got a portal set up for all the different investments, so an investor can kind of go in and see everything they invested in just one place. And so just trying to make things easier for them too, and myself, because
Right.
it's a lot to manage. But if you can use technology and be efficient with it, then everyone kind of wins, because it's just easier and and better.
What's the portal? What
So,
software?
it's Investor Deal Room. So, IDR, and there's several other partners that I work with, operating partners that have used it as well. And so we can sync up sometimes with other operating partners, but also, I'm still having to kind of manually put in some of the data, just because some of the operating partners don't have a portal. And so everyone kind of has their own way of doing it, and that's
Hmm.
totally fine. But what we try to do is just take all that and make it easy, so they can go to one place and just kind of have everything there. And,
Yeah.
and then we're still building that out too. So there's going to be more features and things that will come, but I think as a kind of a baseline, where a lot of investors, are in all these different deals, and we all have our own version of, these spreadsheets that we've created to kind of manage it
Yeah.
all. So it is kind of nice to have just a snapshot, high level overview of your investments and the distributions and all that stuff kind of in one place. So that's kind of what we did today, what we have today. And those are the type of things that going forward, we're looking to kind of streamline and implement, just so we can make everything easier and better and faster for everyone. So we're not having to kind of get bogged down on, some of that type of administrative stuff that can kind of
Right. Right.
eat
The things
away
that need to
at
be
your
done,
time.
but yeah, that take into your time.
Yeah.
Um, so in summary, it sounds like it's really, first off, it's having some experience under your belt definitely helps you go a lot further faster, and also putting it out there exactly what you're doing, and the type of deals you're doing. On the front end, like you said, people already knew that you were a multifamily investor, and they were actually, some of them were even coming to you saying, "Hey, I'm interested. This seems interesting. How do I get involved with something like that?" And then from there, developing your list, and then working the list and building rapport and relationships with the list, and explaining what you do and what opportunities they have. And then when those opportunities arise, then those investors are ready to go. And then as you're doing more deals with these investors, your list just continues to grow, and then that momentum builds on. And then to manage all these investors, you're putting in these systems in place to make it more efficient and easier for them too.
Yeah. You've about nailed it. Summary wise, what I would also say is that I have not stopped networking. I mean, that I'm not taking the foot off
Yeah.
the gas there, because, or foot off the pedal. Sorry. And, I I love talking with new investors. I mean, I think the greatest satisfaction to me is that, I'm sharing this with someone who just has no idea that these types of real estate syndication opportunities exist.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of my mission to get that word out, to spread it. So some of this can be done through thought leadership, like, podcast I'm on here today with you,
Right.
or through, blogs, or just, my website, or industry events that I try to go and speak at, or just go to meet people at and just share ideas and collaborate. So I feel like, the more that we all can work together to kind of get this message out, and at least to share, what this is all about, the better I think everyone's going to be. And so, yeah, I haven't sat back yet and kind of, just let things play out. I'm still, moving forward with, developing my network and, putting myself in a position to meet other people that I think might have interest,
Yeah.
while also cultivating, the current relationships I have.
Yeah, I think that's so important. That's something I've really honed in on the last few years, is just, trying to spend time almost, every day, like either getting a coffee or lunch, or, calling people, catching up with people, just building that constant rapport, and building new relationships every day, because you never know where a new relationship is going to play out, or a partnership, or whatever may happen down the road, whether it be a friendship or, investment partnership. You never know.
Yeah, definitely.
So one last question I wanted to dive into, maybe unrelated, maybe not, but the Irish Angels. Tell me a little bit about that, and maybe if there's any correlation between that and your real estate investing.
Yeah, so Irish Angels is a Notre Dame affiliated angel investing group, and I actually joined it a few years ago. And maybe take a step back, I went to Notre Dame to get, an MBA, but I did it for networking. I honestly, that was the number one reason. I just knew that there was a strong alumni network in the Midwest. I'm in Chicago. For anyone that's in business, like, I felt like this was the best thing for me. I didn't need to go get an MBA, but I did it for the network and the relationships and the alumni. And I'm so happy to be part of that. Alumni association. And part of that came, with Irish Angels being, an alumni, and being able to join that group. And there's 225 members. So a lot of these Irish Angels are, I guess, to take a step back with angel investing. I mean, typically an angel investor is someone who, number one, they're accredited. And number two, that they're very sophisticated investors. A lot of them are entrepreneurs, or, former entrepreneurs who maybe exited, a business. They're there to kind of help, the up and coming entrepreneur, and but they're also, investing into these businesses. And so, not only do I invest in real estate, I'm probably in over 20 different business syndications through Irish Angels and other angel investing opportunities. So those are great opportunities as well. But I also am part of that network because a lot of those investors, have an interest in real estate. And so I'm able, when I go out and speak, and this is kind of going back to being an investor, I can go to an angel investor and I know how those deals are structured. I know some of the pros and cons, but I'm also, a multifamily investor, and I know some of the pros and cons there. So I can speak to both audiences and really kind of help them understand, what both of those investments look like. So I think it helps just to be able to once you understand what that investor is looking for, I kind of know, where to kind of focus, or where that I might be able to help them. And again, it comes down to networking too. I mean, I've got a ton of, I guess, angel investors, or even Irish angel investors that invest in my real estate deals, which is great. And so I'm cultivating that. That's a big part of my network of investors is angel investors, business owners, working professionals. And so I've been very purposeful with how I spent my time and money, because it wasn't cheap to go to Notre Dame and to do that MBA and the time commitment. But I can absolutely tell you it is paying off big time from a relationship standpoint, from a business standpoint, and just it's very fulfilling to be able to go and anytime you put a lot of time and hard work into something and you see it pay off. It was something that again, back when I got sick, that this was another thing on my bucket list that in life I was going to do, and it was important to me, and was able to do it. And I enjoy being part of those groups as well, and I enjoy investing. And for me, just like what I tell most investors, it's all about diversification. You can invest in the stock market, you can do real estate syndications, you can do angel investing, you could keep some money in the savings account, whatever it is. I mean, I think a good strategy long-term is to have some sort of diversification, and everyone's a little bit different, but at the end of the day, I just want people to know what type of opportunities are out there, and they can kind of make that own decision if they think it's right for them or not.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And it's funny, I didn't even realize it went from one networking question right into the next. So that
well, you can see where I network. And so from
network.
a capital raising standpoint, this isn't just something that I got lucky. I mean, I think I've been very purposeful, and I've spent time in certain areas to develop this where I felt like I was going to have, success and be surrounded around the right type of people that, would have interest in this. And so that's what I think. It might look like overnight success, but it was years in the making.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, let's jump into our monumental questions.
Sure.
What does success mean to you?
So to me, success is, it's not about the money. It's about, waking up every day and just loving what you do. It's being able to live life on your terms. And what I mean by that is just having all the freedom and flexibility to do what you want, to be doing something that you feel is purposeful and meaningful and fulfilling. But also, like for me, family is very important. And that's why I left my job in the corporate world to build this business and to be an investor, because I wanted to have control of my time. And I think that's the most valuable thing that you can have. And I want to savor that. And I think I can do that through all the investing. So everyone's version is different, but to me, it's not about the money. It's what maybe money and hard work can give you, which is freedom and flexibility. And, you live in a life that you've, always dreamed of, and do it on your terms.
I love it. Do you have a morning ritual or daily habit that contributes to a great day?
I do. I have a gratitude journal. It's actually called the 5-minute journal. So every morning I go in there, and there's 3 things that I will put in there that I'm grateful for. I even upload a picture, just something that, a special memory that I might have with, my kids or my wife, or just something in general. And then 3 things that I'm going to do to make today great. And it's just as simple as that. It just gets me started off with a positive mindset. It makes me, kind of reflect on why I work so hard and why I'm so grateful for those things that are most important in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's so important to remember gratitude for everything in your life, and do that on a daily basis, because it changes your mindset for the whole day.
Definitely.
What is your favorite book or book you're currently reading?
So I would say, let's see. Well, my favorite book is Rich Dad Poor Dad, because that gave me the blueprint to basically build, this business and all my investing efforts. But a book I'm reading right now, and actually it's a book I'm rereading because I think it was just that good for kind of helping me operate, not only my business but my life. It's a book called Essentialism. It's basically like the disciplined pursuit of doing less. So it's kind of like the Pareto principle, the 80-20.
Right.
20% of your effort's going to generate probably 80% of the return, and so you want to focus on the most important things. And what I've learned is that the ones that can create the highest value, those are the ones you tackle. And then maybe the 80% that's less meaningful, like you just, when you're working really hard and you got a lot on your plate, you just learn to let those things go because they're immaterial, and you're going to drive yourself crazy trying to kind of be all things to all people and to try to do everything. So I try to focus and tackle the hardest things, first in the morning when I feel like I'm my mind is freshest when I wake up.
Yeah.
And so I try to tackle those, but yeah, I just try not to get in the weeds with too many things and just focus on the things that drive the highest value.
Yeah. I think that's so important to remember. All right. So in closing, how can people follow you or reach out to you?
So they can follow me. We're out there on social media, Twitter, at McKenna Capital. It's Instagram. Probably the best way is to go to our website, mckennacapital.com, and they can follow us there. They can actually sign up if they're interested in being on our investor distribution list, just to be kept in the loop with what we're working on and deals as they're coming out. So that's probably the best way to stay in contact with us.
I love it. Guys, seriously, take advantage of the free resources that Ryan and McKenna Capital, his team, are putting out there on their website. Also, if you guys love this episode, make sure to share it, post it on social media, tag Ryan, McKenna Capital, tag me, Evan Holiday, and share it with everybody. Let them know that you're listening and enjoying this episode and getting massive value from Ryan today. Ryan, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Evan. I'm glad you had me on. This was a pleasure. Thanks again.
Likewise. And guys, have a monumental day.